Hi, I'm Nisi. My disability impacts my visual, auditory, and sensory processing, which has changed how I create content. I use AI to adapt and present my work in a way that is both accessible to me and hopefully engaging for you. If you're interested, my process is outlined in the description.
Hello, and welcome to the first video from Deconstructing Media, The Last Word. Today, I'm undertaking an exploration of how Squid Game, a series that resonated with global audiences not just as a thrilling spectacle, but as a profound human condition, demonstrates that while redemption is possible, true absolution requires addressing the systemic roots of suffering and injustice. I'm Nisi, and I love dissecting the deeper meanings embedded within the art that moves us. By challenging our understanding of morality, justice, and the very nature of hope, I believe Squid Game calls for the urgent need to reach true absolution, demanding a collective reckoning with systemic injustice. Through Gi-hun's journey, I'll deconstruct how the series can be interpreted as a portrayal of the inherent limitations of individual redemption in a system designed to perpetuate structural inequality, and why I believe Gi-hun's individual quest for redemption, while commendable, is ultimately insufficient to achieve true absolution. Now let's dive into Squid Game's most unsettling lesson: the illusion of absolution. We're not summarizing the plot today. However, my analysis will discuss key plot points and the ending of Squid Game, so spoiler alert. Ever since the credits rolled on Squid Game, I've come back to three questions. One of outcome, one of method, and one of possibility. Considering the outcome, does Squid Game ultimately suggest that a path of redemption leads to a chance for absolution, a chance to escape the consequences of our past actions? Focusing on the methods the series uses, I wondered, how does Squid Game, through Gi-hun's arc, explore the tension between individual redemption and systemic inequality? And what does this say about achieving true absolution? And finally, we'll explore Gi-hun's key familial relationships prior to the games and the parallels between the game structure and systemic injustices to underscore that central tension. Is true absolution even possible within such a system? My conclusion after diving into the show's complexities is a resounding and heartbreaking no. As I move into a more detailed analysis, please remember that these are my own thoughts and interpretations of the series, not direct quotes or statements from the creators or actors. I just want to share why, to me, Squid Game resonates so strongly in its ability to serve as a stark reminder of the fragility of human existence, the systemic forces that shape our lives, and the constant struggle to maintain our humanity in a world that often seems determined to strip it away. It's important to establish a clear understanding of the terms I'll be using throughout this short analysis. Redemption can be defined as a deeply personal and often arduous journey of atonement. It's about acknowledging past wrongs, striving for self-improvement, and making amends for the harm we've caused. It's an internal transformation, a process of striving to become a better version of ourselves, even when the odds seem insurmountable. Absolution can be considered a formal forgiveness, often granted by an external authority, be it religious, societal, or legal. It's about being cleared of remaining guilt, receiving acceptance, and being welcomed back into a community. It's a release from the burden of past transgressions, a chance to start anew. This is not to say that redemption is not worth striving for, but that it is only one step in a much larger process. To put it simply, the distinction lies in their nature. Redemption is a process, a continuous effort, while absolution is an event, a moment of release. We can dedicate ourselves to the path of redemption, but absolution remains contingent on external factors and is never guaranteed. This inherent uncertainty is thematically at the heart of Squid Game's tragic vision. True absolution remains perpetually out of reach because the system itself actively discourages and suppresses the collective action needed to dismantle it. My central argument is this: Squid Game is not simply a story about individual moral failings and penance. It's a searing indictment of a system that is inherently unjust and rigged against the most vulnerable members of society. The game itself serves as a brutal microcosm of a world that prioritizes profit over people, creating a climate of desperation where individuals are forced to make impossible choices with devastating consequences. Gi-hun's journey, therefore, is not merely a personal tragedy. It's a symptom of a much larger societal sickness, a reflection of the systemic forces that make true redemption so elusive for so many. Squid Game serve as a lens to examine the ways in which societal structures can prevent individuals from achieving true atonement, even when they are actively seeking redemption for past actions. Gi-hun's relationships, rather than offering him a path to absolution, highlight the systemic barriers that prevent him from achieving it. These relationships exemplify how, even with genuine remorse and effort, individual attempts at redemption are consistently undermined by systemic forces, emphasizing that true absolution necessitates a collective challenge to these forces. Gi-hun's story is not just about one man's struggle, but about the shared struggle of all those trapped within a system designed to exploit them. One that provides inadequate social safety nets, fosters predatory practices, and fails to provide universal access to fundamental rights like quality education and healthcare, all of which contribute to the cycle of poverty and desperation that traps families like Gi-hun's. So one of Gi-hun's primary motivations for entering the Squid Game was to alleviate his mother's suffering, a direct consequence of his past failures, and the systemic pressures that make the cost for her care an insurmountable burden. His desperate attempts to win the game and provide for her highlight the inadequacy of individual solutions to systemic problems. The fact that she dies even after his redemptive acts in the game can be seen as a metaphor that true absolution would have required a society where his mother wasn't forced to rely on his gambling winnings for survival, on where her quality of life didn't rely on the quality of her ability to pay for it. In her death, his redemption could never be enough for him to atone for past mistakes, a theme that continues to haunt Gi-hun. Furthermore, Gi-hun's inability to find support within his own community underscores the pervasiveness of systemic inequality. His neighbors and friends are also struggling to survive, and some are even resentful of his past actions. This lack of communal support highlights the breakdown of social solidarity under a system that prioritizes individual competition over collective well-being. True absolution for Gi-hun and for his community requires a collective effort to rebuild these broken bonds and create a society where everyone has the resources they need to thrive. Gi-hun's unrepaired relationship with his daughter is a constant reminder of his past failings as a father, failings rooted not just in personal choices, but also in the systemic pressures that contribute to economic instability and addiction. His gambling addiction can be viewed as a symptom of a society where economic desperation and a lack of opportunity can drive individuals to seek quick solutions, even through risky behaviors, mirroring the very structure of the Squid Game itself. In Gi-hun's inability to fully reconnect with his daughter, even after winning the game, the series demonstrates the lasting damage caused by the intersection of systemic forces and personal choices, poor or wise. True absolution for their relationship would require Gi-hun's commitment to being a better father, but also a society that doesn't trap families in cycles of poverty and addiction. Their broken relationship can be thought of as a symbol of the enduring consequences of past actions, highlighting how societal factors can exacerbate personal failings and hinder genuine redemption. Moreover, it's crucial to recognize that Gi-hun's actions and the resulting trauma experienced by his daughter are not simply isolated incidents, but rather symptoms of a system that actively supports and perpetuates inequity across generations. This system not only creates the conditions for Gi-hun's failings, but also actively emboldens the barriers that prevent him from achieving true atonement with his daughter. It not only created the conditions for Gi-hun's participation in the game, but also actively fueled his trauma and subsequent absence from his daughter's life. Gi-hun's daughter is left to grapple with the pain of a broken relationship without understanding the systemic forces that contributed to her father's choices. This lack of understanding further isolates her and perpetuates the cycle of trauma. The system's exploitation of desperation is at the root of the Squid Game itself. The game, designed by the rich and powerful for their amusement, preys on the disadvantaged, offering them a rigged chance at wealth while stripping them of their dignity and humanity. It thrives on the lack of collective resistance, as the players are pitted against each other, actively undermining their ability to recognize that their true power lies in unity. True absolution would require the players to reject the game's premise, something even Gi-hun battles within his aim to dismantle it. Only a shift from individual survival to united liberation, even larger than Season 2's rebellion attempt, and addressing the resulting trauma it creates, can dismantle such a system. Squid Game forces us to confront a disturbing truth. The game itself is not the problem, but rather a symptom of a much larger societal disease. The true villains of the story are the architects of a system that perpetuates extreme economic inequality, where the ever-widening gap between the mega-wealthy and the struggling masses creates a climate of disempowerment and marginalization, making individuals susceptible to exploitation. The Squid Game is a system that dehumanizes individuals, reducing them to mere numbers, treated as expendable pawns in a twisted game for the entertainment of the wealthy elite. A system that crushes hope and dissent, making it difficult for individuals to challenge the status quo and fight for a better future. And most terrifyingly, one that operates on a global scale, highlighting the interconnectedness of economic inequality and the need for a global response to end it. The tragedy of Squid Game lies not only in the brutality of the game itself, but also in the players' inability to recognize their shared plight and unite against their oppressors. This lack of concerted effort is a direct consequence of the system's design, which fosters competition and distrust, making true absolution impossible. The game is designed so that there can only be one winner, which functions to prevent joint initiatives. Gi-hun's actions could not overthrow the system alone. Even though his decision to return to the games is a powerful act of individual defiance, it is ultimately limited in its impact. True absolution requires more than just one person standing up against the system. His final acts of defiance serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of individual empathy and the potential for collective action, because individual acts of kindness and sacrifice are simply not enough. Gi-hun's final act of defiance, while inspiring, can only be a catalyst for change. It requires a coordinated response to transform that spark into a wildfire. His act is meant to be a message. His individual act of defiance is a symbol of what is possible, but it is not enough on its own. Gi-hun's journey underscores while individual redemption is possible, it is ultimately limited by the systemic forces that shape our lives. He can make amends for his past mistakes, strive to be a better person, and even sacrifice himself for the greater good. However, he cannot single-handedly dismantle the system that created the Squid Game in the first place. That requires a fundamental shift in societal values, and a broader and greater commitment by all, for all. But while a single individual cannot single-handedly change the world, all hope is never lost, as their actions can serve as a trigger, inspiring the collective action needed to dismantle the system and create a world where such games are no longer allowed. Gi-hun can never truly escape the ghosts of his past. The death of his mother, his memories of the lives lost in the games, his failures as a father, and the agonizing choices he made to survive forever haunt him. His inability to enjoy the prize money or reconnect with his daughter highlights the paralyzing effect of trauma. This trauma serves as a lasting reminder of the system's brutality and the human cost of unchecked greed and exploitation. Gi-hun's scars are a constant reminder of the darkness beneath the surface of our society, a darkness fueled by economic inequality and the desperation it breeds. His journey reinforces the psychological toll of living in a world where survival to prosperity often demands sacrificing one's morality and humanity. The weight of his decisions and the knowledge of the game's continued existence propel him to seek its end, a mission that eclipses even the most profound personal guilt that haunted him long before the games revealed the true depths of society's darkness. I believe Squid Game offers a chilling glimpse into a possible future. A future where the gap between the rich and the poor continues to widen, and more individuals are forced to make desperate choices in order to survive. The game itself is not an anomaly, but rather a symptom of a larger, more insidious problem across the globe. It forces an internal question that asks, am I doing enough to prevent this dystopian vision from becoming a reality? Together, are we willing to challenge the systems that perpetuate inequality and exploitation? Or are we content to stand by and watch as the world becomes more and more like the Squid Game? What truly makes Squid Game so compelling is the intricate dance between the creator's intentions and the viewer's personal connection. Does its power lie primarily in the message the creators intended to convey? A stark critique of capitalism, perhaps, or a commentary on social inequality? or in our own personal connection to the story, our empathy for the characters' struggles, and our recognition of the desperation that drives them. I believe it's a dynamic interplay of both. Creator Hwang Dong-hyuk, along with the production team, provide the framework, the narrative structure, and the thematic foundation, drawing inspiration from their own life experiences and observations of South Korean society. They craft the visual language, filled with symbolism and artistic references, and guide the actors in beautifully portraying complex characters facing impossible choices. But we, as viewers, bring our own unique experiences, values, and perspectives to the table, shaping our interpretation of the story and finding meaning in ways that the creators may not have even anticipated. We project our own anxieties, hopes, and fears onto the characters, and we connect with the universal themes of survival, morality, and the human condition. This creates a powerful feedback loop where the artist's vision is both amplified and transformed by the viewer's experience, leading to a richer and more resonant understanding of the series as a whole. At its core, Squid Game is a story about human connection, resilience, and the enduring power of hope in the face of unimaginable adversity. It's a show that can make us laugh, cry, and question our own values. We witness characters forming alliances and betraying each other, showcasing both the best and worst of humanity when pushed to their limits. We see their desperation, their sacrifices, and their unwavering determination to survive, even when the odds are stacked against them. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can still flicker, offering a glimmer of light in a world that often feels overwhelmingly bleak. This emotional core, combined with the show's exploration of economic hardship and social inequality, is what has allowed the series to resonate with audiences across the globe. The simple children's games turned deadly reinforce a stark reminder of the preciousness of life and the importance of cherishing every moment. Ultimately, Squid Game challenges us to reflect on our own ethics and consider what we would do in similar circumstances, prompting us to strive for a world where empathy and compassion prevail over greed and despair. While originality is certainly a factor, I believe that Squid Game's true strength lies in its ability to do four things: evoke powerful emotions, spark meaningful dialogue, promote empathy and understanding, and reach a global audience. It connects with our deepest fears and anxieties, forcing us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world around us. It encourages us to talk about difficult issues, challenge the status quo, and question the systems that govern our lives. It allows us to see the world through the eyes of others, fostering a greater sense of compassion and connection. And it transcends cultural boundaries, sparks a global conversation surrounding issues that matter. It's a series that stays with you long after the credits roll, prompting you to examine your own integrity and your own individual acts in this world. Perhaps the most important lesson we can take away from Squid Game is that individual redemption, while valuable and necessary, is ultimately insufficient. We must move beyond individual acts of compassion and benevolence and focus on collective measures to create systemic change and forge a path to true absolution. These very systems, designed to perpetuate disparity, actively obstruct the path to true absolution for everyone by trapping individuals in cycles of debt, desperation, and moral compromise. Only through a united front can we dismantle these structures and create a society where true absolution is possible. We need to work together to dismantle the structures of inequality and exploitation that create these desperate situations in the first place. And if there's anything we can do for something more than ourselves, it's the liberation of future generations from this cycle. Squid Game leaves us with a lingering sense of unease, a feeling that true absolution, both for individuals and for society, may be an elusive, perhaps even unattainable, goal. It ultimately argues that individual redemption, while valuable, is insufficient to achieve true absolution. Only through cooperative participation can we hope to dismantle the institutional systems that perpetuate inequality and create a more just and equitable world. But perhaps that's precisely the point. The journey towards a just and equitable world, like the journey towards personal redemption, is not a destination, but a continuous process, a lifelong commitment to striving for a better world, in spite of its potential impossibility. Gi-hun's final moments are the last story point central to my thoughts on redemption and absolution. Many viewers hoped for a Squid Game ending where Gi-hun reunites with his daughter, Junhee, and her baby survive, and Junho and Gi-hun get a real showdown with the frontman. For the true dreamers, maybe the VIPs, practically untouchable with their wealth and influence, would face some kind of reckoning. Without a doubt, the series, known for its dramatic flair and its anthem of hope, might have suggested a happy ending was possible for our protagonist. I believe such a resolution wouldn't align with the creator's themes. A purely happy ending would symbolize absolution for characters defined by past failures, ignoring the societal structures that impeded their redemption in reality. Gi-hun's survival alone isn't atonement. His death, marked by faults and follies, embodies our mutual inability to undo certain mistakes. Some will walk away from the end of the series and the conclusion of Gi-hun's tragic crusade, feeling emotionally unsatisfied, maybe even consider his final choice during the games to be his penultimate failing. Despite his accomplishments, he couldn't dismantle a system larger than himself, not without widespread support and compassion. Powerful positive forces often stifled, and so Gi-hun was denied the atonement he sought for himself and others. While a baby as a player in Squid Game strains belief, it serves a purpose. Gi-hun's deference to inequity, choosing compassion over personal gain, sustains hope for a better world where desperation doesn't necessitate redemption and atonement doesn't feel like a false promise to so many. In his final act, Gi-hun departs without assurance of reconciliation or mission success, uncertain if any generational trauma will plague Junhee's child. His death doesn't guarantee the baby's well-being, just like his winnings won't erase his daughter's abandonment trauma or anger at the loss of her father. Though Junhee's baby lives, society's ills persist, leaving intergenerational scars unhealed. Even amid a miracle, the future holds the same possibility and even propensity for tragedy. As watchers, I think what we imagine for this baby reflects our own beliefs in humanity and our potential for absolution. Individual acts matter, and we often prioritize protecting ourselves, our loved ones, and our communities from disparity without realizing how that could hinder the unified action needed to challenge an inequitable system. While many will strive for a more just world, true atonement requires more. Gi-hun's death, no matter how hard fought, is the inevitable outcome of a redemption quest that can never achieve absolution in a world lacking both the fundamental structures to offer it and the widespread uprising needed to build them. To conclude my central argument, Squid Game transcends a mere narrative of individual moral failings and penance, functioning instead as a scathing critique of a system inherently rigged against its most vulnerable members. The games themselves serve as a brutal microcosm of a world prioritizing profit over people, fostering desperation and forcing impossible choices. Gi-hun's journey isn't simply a personal tragedy, but a symptom of a larger societal sickness, reflecting systemic forces that make true redemption elusive. Beyond this essay's focus, Squid Game strikes a deeply personal chord with me as a Black, bisexual, autistic woman. I find the show's depiction of systemic oppression resonates with many of my own lived experiences. The characters' struggles for survival in the face of overwhelming odds mirror the challenges many face navigating a world where intersecting systems of power often create unique and compounding forms of discrimination. I often find myself yearning for a world where rationality governs emotions, particularly in our efforts to create a better future. I believe that by personalizing systemic issues, by highlighting the human cost of inequality, we can create a more compelling case for change. Squid Game is as a powerful reminder that systemic change begins with individual understanding and empathy. By recognizing the humanity in those most affected by injustice, and by bridging the gap between abstract concepts and lived realities, we can begin to dismantle the systems that perpetuate inequality and create equal opportunity for all. It is through these personal connections that we can transform fleeting care into lasting impact. However, this empathy, while crucial for sparking change, does not automatically grant absolution, either to the beneficiaries of a flawed system or to those who are caught within it. True absolution, in my view, remains distinct from redemption. Absolution requires a broader societal reckoning with the systemic forces that drive individuals to desperate choices. Squid Game suggests that until we address these root causes, individual acts of redemption will always be overshadowed by the persistent need for systemic absolution, a collective cleansing of the structures that perpetuate injustice. Some might find Gi-hun's sacrifice futile. Others, that it's an example that says humans are unredeemable. But I agree with those who argue Gi-hun's final act offers a glimmer of hope. His empathy, his repeated refusals to pick personal greed over personal well-being represents a crucial step. However, isolated gestures of goodwill, while valuable, are ultimately insufficient to dismantle a structure as deeply entrenched as the one depicted in Squid Game. Still, it's precisely Gi-hun's kind of empathy, scaled up and translated into shared efforts, that can serve as an agent for meaningful change. Without doubt, it's valid to appreciate Squid Game for its mere entertainment alone, which it has more than enough of to satisfy any viewer. But I believe that fictional narratives offer profound insights into our lives and real-world issues that can prompt us to examine our own beliefs and consider the roles we play in today's world. Thank you for joining me on this journey into what I found to be the heart of Squid Game. I hope this video has inspired you to think more deeply about its themes of redemption, absolution, and systemic injustice. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm eager to hear your POV. Now it's your turn. What did Squid Game mean to you? Did it challenge your perspectives? Did it make you question your own values? Tell me your last word on Squid Game. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Until next time, stay inwardly wired and keep exploring the moral complexities of the stories we tell.